Rolls-Royce is keeping the V12 alive until at least 2030, and honestly I think it's going to be longer than that because Aston Martin has just dropped the new Vanquish with the new V12, completely brand new, and you don't spend millions of dollars developing a V12 just to have it last a couple of years. So I think the V12 is actually, in cars like this, Aston Martin and the Rolls-Royce, I think they're here to stay for a long time. So they also have some other news from Rolls-Royce that we're going to go into when it comes to EVs. I think actually EVs suit Rolls-Royce. An electric powertrain, you know, it's a luxury, it's smooth, it's quiet, it sort of suits the Spectre, for example. So let's have a look at this article from Car Scoops, and then we're going to have a look also in Photoshop on the new Colin, because the front end of the Colin, I did make a redesign of that. I'm going to show you the result of that in the end of this video while we'll compare the old Colin to the new one. So first of all, Car Scoops, link down below. Rolls-Royce's V12 to survive until 2030. Electric SUV and sedan in the pipeline. A new electric SUV to slot below the Colin will launch in early 2027, so pretty soon here. Rolls-Royce will continue to build the V12 powered Colin until the end of the decade. You have an update to the Spectre coming as well for 2027. So 2027 is going to be a big year for Rolls-Royce. They have this new smaller SUV, and they also have the updated Spectre already in 2027. It feels like it just came out. Now, as they say here, battery electric powertrains make complete sense for a brand as focused on luxury and smooth and quiet driving experiences as Rolls-Royce. And I totally agree with that. The only issue right now, and that is why I think they're refreshing the Spectre as soon as 2027, is, first of all, the charging time. You need to speed that up. If you buy a Rolls-Royce, you don't want to sit, you know, in a charging station for 30 minutes among peasants and, you know, charge your Rolls-Royce. You want it to be very, very quick. And of course, the range. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong here, I think the range of the Spectre is around 240 miles, and that could definitely be improved. So I think those two key features is going to be improved for 2027. The British automaker's plans to become a EV brand only. We've heard that before. Its next EV will be an SUV that is smaller than the Colin. It will also be cheaper, of course, since it's smaller, and it's expected to launch in early 2027. It's unclear if this model will share the same powertrain as the current Spectre, but given that it's still a few years away, Rolls-Royce may be using more up-to-date batteries and electric motors by then, and I do think that is going to be the case. I don't think, if they're going to update the Spectre for 2027, they're also going to release a new SUV EV for 2027. It makes sense to put the updated Spectre drivetrain into that. So I don't think we're going to have the current Spectre drivetrain in this new smaller SUV. Launching toward the ends of 2028 will be a new all-electric sedan. It will serve as a successor to the iconic Phantom. So the next gen Phantom is going to be electric, and that is going to be very interesting to see. I think it's going to be one of the smoothest riding cars ever made if Rolls-Royce decide to go down that route. The Rolls-Royce will push ahead with the sales of its V12 power models. The Colin was recently updated and continues to rock a 6.75-liter twin turbocharged V12. Love to see that, because I also think, in addition to electric drive, I also think that V12s suit brands like this because they are very, very smooth. They're usually not too loud like a V8, and they have this luxurious feel to them. So V12s or electric drive, that is what you have to choose from when it comes to Rolls-Royce. I love it. A direct replacement for the Colin is not in the plans as of right now. Rolls-Royce is also planning the future of the battery electric Spectre. The new model was only unveiled a couple of years ago. Was it really a couple of years ago already? Time just flies here. But a refreshed version, as I said, is set to launch in 2027. So with that said, let's jump into Photoshop here and have a look at this new Colin and what is going on here, because it is a pretty strange refresh of the Colin here. So let's have a look at the new one on the left, and then we have the old one on the right. And the reason why I 100% prefer the old design, it looks a lot more stately, a lot more classic. But the thing about this new one here is that the idea from Rolls-Royce was that they wanted to make it look more like a boat. And the problem with that is the Colin isn't a boat, it's an SUV. So adding some boat-like features, specifically here with these angles in the front end sticking up in this area, this makes it look like a man-story body kit. It just makes it look a whole lot cheaper than it did pre-facelift here. But I do like these changes that we have here. For example, for the daytime run light, how it now goes in this chamfer here and then cuts into the bumper. We still have some beautiful chamfers going on here. We also have a chamfer underneath the headlight here. Pretty hard to see when it's white, but it looks very clean. The top half of the front end, the lower half down here, looks way too messy for me, and specifically for a Rolls-Royce. That is the reason why I 100% prefer the old one, because look at this. We have horizontal and vertical lines, and that is exactly what you want to have in a stately big SUV like this. And specifically when we're talking Rolls-Royce, this looks beautiful. Love the small little intakes that we have here as well. We have parallel lines going everywhere and vertical lines, and that is pretty much all the lines that makes up the front end graphics. And this is what we want to see if we want to have a stately looking design. We need to have horizontal, vertical lines, very, very simple graphics. And I think Rolls-Royce nailed it with the Colin. And some people say that it's a very ugly SUV, but I don't think so. I think it looks pretty clean, to be honest. Now looking at the side view here, and then of course we need to check out the interiors of this, because the new one, again, I prefer the old one when it comes to the interior. I'm gonna let you know why in a second. But looking at the proportions here, the side view doesn't really change a lot. We still have this beautiful shoulder line here, and we have this little bump in the rear end. The typical Rolls-Royce, we need to add this bump in some way, even though we are sketching up an SUV for the Colin here. A beautiful greenhouse as well. It doesn't really slow back too much, and that's not what we want either. We want to have it be pretty straight up top, since again, it is a big SUV from Rolls, meaning that we need to still have a lot of horizontal and vertical lines in the design here. The front end, super confident still with this vertical line stretching straight up. We don't even have a bumper sticking out down here, which looks very, very clean. But again, when it comes to the side view, don't really have a preference here, because they look very similar, these two. I also like this line that cuts in through the doors and then wraps around back here from the rear end graphics, coming in here and connecting to this line that we have in the side view. The wheels, definitely again prefer the old wheels here. I just think they look a lot more simple than the new one here. These look maybe a little bit too sporty, and if we're gonna have a design like this, I always want to have the outline of the rim itself be connected like this, and not have these black pieces, you know, in between the spokes of the wheel. Just have it be connected like this. Looks so much better in pretty much every single wheel. You can see the differences here from the front to the rear when we have the black pieces right here. Personally, I want to have these be connected as we did in the front wheel right there. Now looking at the rear end, a couple of changes here. Again, still prefer the old one for a simple reason. I mean, it's not that I just prefer the old design every single time. It's just that I think car design used to be a lot better generally than what we have right now. But the new one doesn't look as bad in the rear as it does in the front end, because we still have this graphic up here with this beautiful chamfer in creating sort of a bumper, beautiful taillights as well, blacked out graphics here, Rolls-Royce logo up top, and we have a small little roof spoiler up top to create a little bit of sportiness and also help with the airflow over the roof. However, this area here, what is going on with this lower section, with this bumper sticking up like this, and we have the same bulge in this area. In the previous one, look at this, so much cleaner. Again, just a straight line. And the lower section, the bumper here, is also black, which I think looks very cool. Now, having these type of exhaust pipes down here, why is it heavier in the lower section here? You see the mass of the framing for the tailpipes is a lot thicker in the lower section, dragging these pipes down to the ground, making it look like they're almost melting down. If we're gonna have tailpipes like this, I want to have the same thickness going all around it like we have in the top piece here, and not add this separate thickness at the lower section, and the tailpipe itself is pretty squarish. Well, you see the pipe itself inside is rounded. It just, again, makes it look like a cheap body kit. I definitely prefer this simplistic layout that we have here with two squared off rectangular exhaust pipes down here, a silver diffuser in the middle, and that's pretty much it. But the big thing here is this line, how this is now in the old one is just straightforward, while in the new one is first of all body colored, which makes it look a little bit more sporty. But Rolls-Royce, it's not supposed to be a sport brand. It's a 100. If there's any brand in the world that you would ask yourself, what is the most luxurious car brand in the world? It's going to be Rolls-Royce. It's not supposed to be Bentley-ish, where they sprinkle in some sportiness. The Rolls-Royce is supposed to be a 100% luxury, and that happens. That type of philosophy to add some sprinkling, some sportiness happened here in the interior as well. So here we have the old one, and usually I am not a fan of wood inside of an interior, but you know, when it comes to Rolls-Royce, it's a different story. Rolls-Royce is supposed to have these natural textures and materials on the inside, making it look clean and elegant and old school, just like we have here. We have a beautiful watch here, analog watch, small little display here. You don't want a bigger display than this in a Rolls-Royce. You have physical buttons for all the climate control settings here, and this wood texture looking absolutely beautiful, in addition to these small chrome pieces and, you know, many handcrafted pieces of the interior. It's a stunning interior, the pre-facelift Colin, and also like the steering wheel looks like a sort of a watch with all these mechanisms, the buttons down here looking very clean. Now look at the new one here. This is, to me, a Bentley interior. It's very luxurious, but we have all these carbon fiber now instead of wood. And that is not something that I personally want to see in a Rolls. I want to see this in Bentley. But thankfully, we still have the analog watch here. And thankfully, again, we still have the physical buttons and knobs for all the radio settings here. The screen also did not extend up, and they grew the screen to something like this. A 14-inch in a Rolls-Royce Cullinan would just not look right. Bigger is not always better, but this is the reason why I prefer the old generation of the Cullinan, the pre-facelift. Is first of all, the exterior design just looks a lot more classy than the facelifted version with this boat-like design in the front end, and we also have the interiors, which again I prefer the old one here, looking a lot classier than the new one that looks like a sport, like a running shoe, like you're inside of a running shoe with all these carbon fiber pieces and these neon green leather or whatever material this is. So it's an interesting future for Rolls-Royce. As I said, putting EVs, if there's one brand, one type of category of car that I think really suits to have be EVs, it's going to be luxury brands. They just need to work, as I said, on the charging time and also the range. I did make a quick redesign of this Cullinan just because I had to when I saw it first coming out, to add the sort of the lower section from the Spectre onto the new Rolls-Royce, and I think that looks so much better than the design that we have of the current Cullinan.